What is going on, guys? We are back, and today we are going to be doing a showcase on the mod Tetra. Now, if you don't know what Tetra is, it is a mod that allows for crazy customization when it comes to tools. You'll start out with basic, boring vanilla tools, which I know is pretty lame, but you will very quickly be able to upgrade those to tools that can do so many different things and will be way more efficient and powerful than the ones that you would normally have. You can do this by upgrading pretty much every aspect of the tool, ranging from very simple things like the handle material of the tool and even the wrap on the handle and the bindings for the different heads of it. Or if it's a double-headed tool like a pickaxe, you can actually add in multiple different head types, one on the left, one on the right, to make it have multiple functionalities. So suffice to say, there is a ton of stuff you can do with this mod. It's crazy fun to mess around with. There are almost infinite options for tools that will all be different from one another. So we have a ton of stuff to cover today, and it is all going to start here at a very simple crafting table, as pretty much everything in Minecraft does. So to get started out in this mod, we are going to be crafting the one base tool that Tetra adds to the game, and that is going to be the hammer. Now, you are able to craft this either as a wood or stone version. If you have the option of doing stone, I would highly recommend it, as if you do wood, you are simply going to be upgrading to stone pretty quickly. So you can see here, you simply make it with 2 sticks and 2 cobblestone, and you will pop out a stone hammer. As you get that, you'll unlock some new stuff called basic tinkering, and that is going to give you this object right here. And this is one of the most important things in all of Tetra, because this hollow sphere is going to be the in-game documentation. I know it doesn't look like your typical book, but when you open it up by right-clicking on it, it looks even cooler. The UI for this is absolutely phenomenal. It is a wonderful design, one of the coolest ones I have ever seen in modded Minecraft, and this is going to contain all the information you will need to know to progress through this mod. It's also going to come in handy down the line, so even if you don't care about this information, if you want to make your life easier later on, definitely hold on to this thing. So in here, you will see that there's a bunch of different things we can pick from. There are going to be 6 different types of tools you can work with initially, being bows, tool belts, single-headed tools, double-headed tools, blades, and shields. And if you click on each of these, you will be able to see the different options you have for upgrading them, the different pieces you can upgrade. So as you can see, these have a ton of different things that we'll be going over. But the most important part of this is this bottom section here labeled materials, as this is going to show you all the different crafting materials that can be used across the various different upgrade slots throughout the mod. Now, we only have the vanilla available materials here, but if you are playing in modded Minecraft, there are a ton of compatible mods that will add in new materials, be it different metals or magical woods or things of that sort, that will all have different effects. So I'm not going to be able to list them out here, but if you go into the description, you will find a link to the download page for this mod where they actually have a list of all materials that can be added in if the applicable mods are also included in your pack. But in here, you'll be able to see all the different details about the materials simply by hovering over them. And if you want to look in a little bit more detail, you simply click on it and you can go down here and get descriptions. So you can see the base durability, you can see the integrity gain and integrity cost, you can see the magic capacity of it, you can see the required tool for it and the different tool tier, the hardness, the tool level that will come from it, all the different stuff that will be relevant later on. I know it probably sounds very confusing, and admittedly it is, but I'm going to walk you guys through it today so that we will know everything we need to get started. So once you have the stone hammer or the wooden one, the first thing you are going to want to do is place down a second crafting table, and you are going to want to right click on it with the stone hammer. When you do this, you will get the workbench, and this is where all the magic with Tetra is going to take place. So you guys better buckle up, because we are going to be staring at this screen for quite a while. So now that we have the workbench set up, we are good to jump in and start doing stuff with our tools. So if we were to throw the stone hammer in here, we can see a ton of different details about it. We can see the durability, the reach, the damage, and the speed of it, all useful information that will all be adjusted as we upgrade different parts of it, but we can also see what is most important, and this is going to be critical for the different crafting tools that we'll be going over, and this will be the tier of the actual tool we have in here. Right here we can see this is a hammer tier 2, which will come in handy when we go to do upgrades, as every upgrade is going to require you to have a crafting tool present of that tier or higher to actually be able to do it. Now to make a little bit more sense of this, we can hop out of here and quickly open up the Holosphere, and on the materials page, if we were to hover over any of these materials, you will see that in the details down here, it shows that this action requires a tier something of a certain type of tool. Now the three different types of tools that are actually going to be relevant here will be a hammer, an axe, and then some sort of cutting tool, but it will probably be a short blade, as that's going to be the easiest to get to the tier you need. Now the reason this is important is because you are going to need to upgrade your tools alongside each other. You cannot simply upgrade one all the way, as it's not going to work. You're going to need a bunch of tools to actually be able to effectively upgrade every part of all your other tools. And it's also important to note that whatever tool you're currently upgrading is not going to count as you actually having that tool to use. You can't hammer a hammer with that hammer itself. You need another one. That makes sense in game and also in real life. So if you wanted to upgrade the head of your hammer to be iron, as we will be doing shortly, you can see that it's going to require a tier 2 hammer. Well, we already have a tier 2 hammer, but that's what we're upgrading. So we need to actually make another tier 2 hammer to work with, which is why when you are playing with Tetra, it is important to have sort of some side crafting tools that will just be basic, very simple tools of a suitable tier. And then you'll probably have your main tools, which will be ones that are more suited to doing actual things that you would want, like killing mobs and mining stuff and all that good stuff. So right now we want to hop over and actually craft a second hammer here so that we can use it to upgrade the current hammer that we have when it comes time. Now, eventually it's probably going to get pretty annoying having all these additional crafting tools that you need to make the upgrades to your main tools, having to sit in your inventory alongside them or having to grab them from a chest every time you want to make a small upgrade. So thankfully there is a workaround where we can put what's called a rack on a wall within a 3x3 area of the workbench we intend to use, and this will allow us to still access a tool and utilize it without actually having to have it on our person. Now you can put 2 items on each rack, and you can see the hammer will just sit there, and if we were to come in here and try to make an upgrade to this hammer, we are able to, because the tier 2 hammer that we need is still counted as actually being on our person or usable by simply sitting in that rack. Now today we're going to be quickly going over upgrading the 3 different types of tools that I mentioned earlier, that being the hammer, the axe, and some sort of cutting implement, because those will allow you to make all the different upgrades that you need to pretty much all your other tools. Obviously, there are so many different things that we could go over here. We could talk for hours about the options for different tools that you can make. That is going to be on you guys. All the details you need are actually in here, looking at how it affects the durability, the reach, all that different stuff about the tools. But we're going to go over the stuff you need to know to progress through the mod so that you can put all those upgrades on whatever tool you want. So those 3 tools are going to start out with the hammer, as it is the most important. This is what's going to be upgraded to the highest tier by the end of this video, and it's going to be the one that is utilized the most in actual high tier upgrades, as all different metals and obsidian and stuff like that, and even netherite, which will be the highest vanilla tier material that we can use, is going to require. So to start out with this, if you were to have a wooden hammer, you can simply upgrade it by clicking on the heads on the side here, whether it is the left head or the right head to start, and you'll be able to pick from all these different kinds of head types in here. Obviously, if you wanted to upgrade this to be a pickaxe, you could choose a pickaxe head. You have a claw, a hoe, a sickle, hammerhead, axe head, and however you pronounce this, adze head. I don't know if that's right, but we're focused on a hammer today, so we're going to click on hammerhead, and all you have to do here is simply drag the material into the head material, and you can see the game is even awesome. It is going to put little boxes around all the different materials in your inventory that you can use for this. So we can use wood, we could use cobblestone, we could use iron, and you can see as I hover over these, on those details above the item, it shows how it actually affects it. You could use blackstone, obsidian, and there's other materials we could use too, but these are the ones I have ready for today. So we're going to go with iron. That's the next logical step, and it's what's going to allow us to get our hammer to tier 3. You can see it's at tier 2 right now, and we want to get it up to tier 4 before we have to do some fancy stuff to make it go even further. So all we're going to do is put the iron in there, and we're going to click craft. And you can see that it is now upgraded on one side, so that it has an iron hammerhead. But you can see it's still at tier 2. It didn't actually change. Well, that's because we need to upgrade the other side also to a hammerhead. So if we put the iron back in here and click craft, Now you can see it is a tier 3 full iron hammer. And the way we can actually get a little bit more detail on why this happened is if we click on either side of the head where it's an iron hammer and click on the details section on the side here, we can look at this effect, which is a synergy bonus. Now, two-headed tools will have synergy bonuses. They're all going to be different, but when you end up doubling up on the two heads, the synergy bonus is going to occur. And for hammers, this one is critical in actually getting it to a high enough tier, as the synergy bonus is having +1 hammer tiers. So if we only had one iron hammerhead and one stone one like earlier, it was a tier 2. But if we have both, we get +1 additional hammer tiers to bring it to tier 3. So now we have a tier 3 hammer and we want to get it to tier 4. So what do? We can go in and craft, and if we look at hammerheads, the next tier is going to be blackstone. So if we were to put blackstone in here, it would say that we require a tier 3 hammer. Oh no. So what can we do? We can take our iron hammer out, we can grab our stone hammer from here, put our iron hammer back, and now if we were to put our stone hammer in and go to the stone hammerhead and upgrade the hammerhead, if we put the blackstone in here, we can simply upgrade that side, and then we can do it all over again on this side, and there we go. Now we have a blackstone hammer. So you don't actually need to go tier by tier, which is why it's super efficient to upgrade to the tier 3, then flip back to the one you had before that you used for upgrading, and then use it to get to tier 4, and so on and so forth as you go up to the highest tier. So now we have the blackstone hammer, and the next logical upgrade would be obsidian. This is what's going to be able to bring us to the next tier of hammer, and so if we were to go in here and go to hammerhead, we would see that we need a tier 6 hammer, which is crazy. That's 2 tiers up from what we currently have, even with the synergy bonus. That is because the hammer cannot be further upgraded without us exploring and finding a forge hammer in one of the world-generated structures that Tetra adds to the game. So we're not going to cover that just yet. That'll be down the road in the episode a little bit. We will get there to get all the way up to the highest tier hammer, do not worry. But now we're going to go and actually cover the other 2 tools that I said we would. So we need to now talk about the axe, and thankfully the axe is a bit of a joke. Really, we're only concerned about getting a tier 3 axe. That should be sufficient for all the vanilla wood materials that you're going to need, and to get that, well, this looks pretty familiar to most of you guys. That's an iron axe right there, and if we were to go in and put the iron axe in here, well, we can see it's already at tier 3 for the axe. So very simple. If you wanted to upgrade a stone axe or a wooden one, you could do it in just the way we described, where we would upgrade the axe head and the butt of the tool to the iron material, and then we have it at tier 3. So that one's super easy, really good to get out of the way early. And we can simply throw that down over here if we wanted to also. So now we can upgrade anything that requires an axe and be totally fine. Now the final important tool we're going to cover is going to be the cutting tool, and this one is a little bit different from other ones. It's kind of confusing to some people to actually upgrade, as it's not as cut and dry. I know, kind of funny way to say it, but to start out with this, we're going to be making a simple stone sword. Now we're going to come over to the workbench, toss this in here, and the only thing that we care about when it comes to upgrading the cut tier of this is going to be the actual blade. There's a ton of different stuff in here. You can upgrade more options than any of the other tools we've touched so far. But if we come over here, the only part we care about is going to be the short blade. None of these other ones are going to be very easy to get up to that tier. And the material we're going to use is going to be diamond. So this is going to get us to tier 3. The other options we have, something like obsidian, which will also get us there, requires a tier 5 hammer, and we don't have that yet. So down the line, if you have the tier 5 hammer and have already done what we'll discuss later, then you could actually make an obsidian short blade, but an easy way to get there early on is going to be using diamond. So if we were to simply click craft, we now have a tool that can be used as a tier 3 cutting implement, and we'll be able to do pretty much every craft we want in the game right now using both this cutting tool, this axe right here, and this hammer will be sufficient for most, but we are going to need to upgrade this further if we want to maximize all of our other tools. So I'm sure you can already tell that there are a ton of different possible combinations. As I said earlier, we're not going to be able to go over all of them. Have fun experimenting with them. The tools will look awesome. They'll have a ton of cool effects. They'll be super strong. But something that's important for us to quickly go over is going to be one specific stat that is probably going to limit you guys in upgrading your tools pretty early on. Now we can take the Iron Hammer to look at this, and we can see right here it is listed as integrity. And this one is currently 4 out of 4. Now what integrity is the available upgrade slots on whatever item you have in there. And this will vary depending on the different upgrades on the tool. And that's going to be because certain upgrades add amount of integrity to the tool, and other upgrades are going to require a certain amount of integrity. An example would be that an iron handle is going to give you 6 integrity to the tool, whereas an obsidian head is going to require 3 integrity. So you're going to want to make sure that you always have additional integrity slots. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to upgrade other parts of your tools if they actually require more. And there's a couple different ways to get around this. The first one is simply making sure that every part of your tool is upgraded along with the other parts. We don't want to leave a flimsy handle as we upgrade all the way to a netherite hammer. That's just not going to make sense, and it's not going to work. But if we were to come in here, go to a basic handle and pick iron, we could craft this, and now you can see what I said. The integrity is up to 6 because the iron handle provides us with 6 integrity. So now we have 2 more upgrade slots that we can use on this. Along with that, you also have the option of settling different materials, and this is going to be dependent on what the actual material is that was used in your craft. So if we were to go out into the world and use this iron hammer, it would pretty quickly settle, and that's going to mean that the iron hammerheads will no longer be using up integrity slots like they currently are. And this is why it's important to actually use your tools as you're upgrading them. It's going to be very hard to come in here and simply go from 0 to 100 with a really low tier tool all the way up to the highest possible upgrade in every facet, because you're going to run out of integrity uses. Now, if you want to have info on which of the materials can actually settle, if you come into the materials tab of your holosphere, we can look and see that a couple that don't are diamonds and emeralds, and these will have right down here in the bottom right this arrested modifier, and it specifically says that major modules crafted from this material will have the arrested modifier, which means that they will not settle over time. But if we look at other materials like iron, it doesn't have that, meaning that as you use it, it will eventually settle, and then you can put further upgrades on it. So obviously that's one of the reasons to potentially stay away from things like gemstones. Obviously in the case of the short blade, it was awesome because it was a workaround for not being able to use obsidian, and so using the diamond was great, but things that can't actually settle are going to be a little bit annoying because they are going to greatly impact your integrity of the item. The last thing that we are going to go over for the tools is going to be called honing, and this can basically be thought of as the level of the tool, as you are able to level these up as you use them. Now when you level them up, you'll be able to add small enchants to them that can increase things like durability, speed, damage, all those different things, and it will be a very small upgrade, but it's an upgrade nonetheless. Now, when you look over a tool and you hold shift, you'll be able to see at the very bottom, it's honing, and you will see right here, this is 30 out of 240. So it's 13% to leveling up. If we were to look over our hammer, it's 58 out of 515. So it's 11%. Now, tools that you actually use out in the real world will gain honing experience simply as you use them, but you also can gain honing experience by using the tools to craft other tools. So things like the hammer that you'll probably just have laying around to craft other tools can still get honing experience by doing that. Now, an example we can give really quick will be the diamond short blade will get 15 honing experience if we come in and add a wrap to our handle and use some rabbit hide, which requires a tier 1 cutting tool. So if we were to craft this, we can now look, and now we're 45 out of 240, so 19%. So you will get honing experience simply over time, but you always want to hop back here and add those upgrades to your tools when you have the option so you can continue leveling them up, because in the end, they will definitely add up and make a difference if you're trying to get the most powerful tool possible. Now, I mentioned this earlier and we're finally going to go over it, but this is going to be how to upgrade your hammer and a couple other items even further to their highest tier by finding the forge, which is out in the world generated by Tetra when you add it in. And this is where a lot of people have trouble with this. I've seen countless people post on Reddit asking how they can upgrade their hammer further because they're stuck and they can't find the forge and everything. So we're going to go over it's not really a secret, but it's something a ton of people don't know that makes it a little bit easier to find them. And I'm actually going to find one right on here on camera with you guys. This is a fresh seed. I have not looked anywhere, but just so you know, the forge will only generate way underground, basically at bedrock, maybe 10 blocks up, in a snowy or mountainous biome, which is why we are currently right out here in this nice snowy and mountainous biome. But the first thing we want to do before we venture off to finish upgrading our hammer is take out the hollow sphere and put it in here. And would you look at that, we can actually add 2 attachments to this. And here's why I told you guys that you'd want to hold on to it. Here's what no one seems to know you can do, but you can add on a scanner using an Eye of Ender, and this is going to allow you to use this to locate a forge very easily. And you can actually put 2 of these on, so it'll make it a little bit higher scan range. And there we go. Now we have an upgraded hollow sphere. And when we hold it, you can see at the top of the screen, this nice little bar pops up, and eventually you'll see a little scanner come across it that's going to be in all white. When we're trying to find a forge, if we're getting close, it will indicate that by turning red. You can see it going across right now. When it turns red, that means that we are looking in the direction of a forge, and we should keep heading that way if we want to finish upgrading our stuff. And you're going to have to do this multiple times unless you're extremely lucky, which I bet none of us will be, because obviously luck is never on our side as a bunch of gamers. So it's really important that you know how to do this. So what I'm going to do right now is quickly speed up a clip of me going to find a forge, and I should probably grab out some torches because we are going to be deep underground, basically just mining randomly till we find this. But make sure you're in the right biome, upgrade your hollow sphere, and start digging down. Okay guys, and here we go. Did not take me long. I know I had to cut a couple times in there, but we really did not travel that far. I'll be able to show you guys. I'll actually head up to the surface once we finish this section right here, just to show you how far I did in fact travel. But the hollow sphere makes it very easy to find this, and you can see the visuals and also the sound. And you don't even need to be holding this thing to hear the sound. So eventually the sound is going to become very annoying. I'm actually probably going to have to disable in-game sound for the time being, or toss this thing out, just so we don't have to constantly listen to this. But this is going to be the forge, and these are going to contain a ton of different things. But the first and most important stuff is going to be forge crates, which you can see right here, and potentially forge containers, which might also be in here. And these are going to contain the items we need to begin using the forge hammer when we actually find it. So for these, if we look at them, you can see that they have different tool indicators on them. So on each corner, this is going to be hammers and as their tier. And then in the center, it's got what looks almost like a crowbar. And to use this, you're going to want a claw tool. So all we're going to do is simply right click on them with whatever tool is needed for that, and we will get items. And these items are going to be necessary to use the forge hammer, which will be necessary to upgrade our hammer to a higher tier. Now you're going to want to go around, do a ton of these, and make sure you get all of them. Some of them will give different items, and we're really looking for some really critical ones. So the main ones that we're going to want to find will be the combustion chamber, and we are going to want thermal cells. Now the combustion chambers will be critical. The thermal cells you might find in different areas, but you also will find things like lubricant dispensers, insulated plates, and planar stabilizers, which will also be useful but won't allow us to get to the highest tier of hammer. So we'll go over those later. Now right here, we are going to be able to use this block to actually upgrade the thermal cells that are empty by putting them in here, and this will fill them with lava. Now, the thermal cells need to be full simply because you are going to be expending this thermal energy in the forge hammer to use it, and eventually when you're using the forge hammer, these will deplete and you'll need to refill them. So you can see this is going right down into bedrock and some lava, and it will pull it up and it will fill these for you. So once you have them full, you're going to need 2 of these, but definitely keep track of 1 of these because you're probably going to need to refill them eventually, and it's important you don't have to go and find another one. Now in here you might also find a forge hammer, but we did not get that lucky. Unfortunately, you're going to probably have to find a bunch of these to get all the things you need. But if we come up here, you can see these are very big. So you can walk around, you'll be able to find potentially other crates in here as you go through these side areas, or other things like this right here, which we can hammer out on the sides. Where is it? If we right click there, you can hear we smash it, and right here. And then once we do that, we can crowbar it and break it. There's a ton of different stuff that you'll be able to find in here, so definitely explore the entire thing. They go up very high, but if you don't find the forge hammer, that'll probably be the most difficult one for you to find, and that just means it is time to move on with your hollow sphere and go on to the next forge. And all you do is just break your way through and start digging again, because these things really are not that hard to find if you're in the correct biome. So I did tell you guys that I would show you, if we came right up from where the forge is, which is right here, just how far it was from right where I spawned into this world. So if we fly up right here and look around this mountain, that's where we started. So really not that far. It's really easy to find these, but now we're going to go over how to use the forge hammer. Once you've found this, at least 2 thermal cells and have them filled, and then at least 2 of these potential upgrades, and ideally if you want to upgrade your hammer all the way, then 2 combustion chambers. So what you're going to want is, when you have the forge hammer, and you can just set this up down in the actual forge itself, you're going to want to have a workbench set up directly below the forge hammer, which will be in the air. And this has 4 different sides you can interact with. 2 of these are going to use thermal cells, so these small square sides right here, you're simply going to right click on and put in your thermal cells, and you're going to need filled ones on each side. All you got to do to take them out is right click it, and then this side and the other one are going to be used for those miscellaneous upgrades. So if we wanted to give an example, this forge hammer will not actually work if we were to put in our blackstone hammer and attempt to upgrade it to obsidian for a hammerhead. You can see it requires a tier 6 hammer. We only have tier 2 available, so if we were to put in the upgrades, the miscellaneous ones on this side, this forge hammer would at least become active. So we can put in a lubricant dispenser and, just for sake of example, a planar stabilizer, and you can see we've now restored the machinery. This is ready to function. Unfortunately, if we come down here, we can see that it still requires a tier 6 hammer, and we do not have a tier 6 hammer. And my gosh, this hollow sphere just keeps going. I'm gonna have to cut that sound out of the video. That's the one annoying thing about this, is it's gonna register it now because we have this set up here. But it's now tier 5. So yes, this will be able to function as a tier 5 hammer, but we want it higher. The only way to get it higher is to use these combustion chambers, and each one increases the hammer tier by 1. So if we only put 1 of these in place of one of the miscellaneous upgrades, we will be able to use this as a tier 6 hammer and make the obsidian upgrade. But most people are going to want a tier 7 hammer using the forge hammer so that they can use netherite. So what we got to do is come over and look at this, and you can see it requires, again, a clawing tool to be able to actually take out the upgrades. So you're going to want to make sure you have one of those too if you're actually doing the looking around the world for stuff. These aren't really useful when it comes to doing any crafting of tools themselves, but they are required, obviously, with what we just talked about, with opening the containers and crates, and also with removing upgrades from the hammer. But then if we were to throw in a combustion chamber on one side and put in a lubricant dispenser on the other, and we come in here, we can see we have a tier 6 hammer available. Now, if we want to quickly upgrade the flimsy handle so that we have a little bit more integrity to work with, we would be able to come in and upgrade to an obsidian hammerhead if we wanted to. But I want to give you guys the example of a fully upgraded one. So we're going to throw in a second combustion chamber here, which means this is tier 7. And if we come in and grab out the highest tier that we'll be able to get, the netherite ingot, we can now make the hammerhead out of that, which requires a tier 7 hammer, and we can craft it And now we have a perfect example of something that can happen. All these upgrades are going to impact the Forge Hammer in a different way. You can see that the planar stabilizer is going to cause major modules to slightly improve the stats of them. The insulated plate is going to increase its efficiency, and the lubricant dispenser is going to reduce the chance for the hammer to jam by 50%. Now, what you see right here is the hammer jammed, but the way you get around this is simply by using a tool, and in this case, it's going to be another hammer, which we need a tier 4 one to fix it. So we'll simply grab out our hammer here and right click on it a couple times, and it will potentially fix. Come over to this side. There we go. So maintenance acquired. We have now fixed the hammer. We are good to go again and upgrade the other side. So we'll go hammerhead. Nope, not obsidian. What am I thinking? Netherite. Craft it, and here we go. We have our final netherite hammer, and this is going to be the highest tier hammer that we are able to get. And apparently we just started a fire. Now, the very last thing that you guys might have noticed while I was doing a bit of the mining is we did come across something called a geode. And you will find these as you do mining. They just generate in the world while you're mining because Tetra is in the game. And these will break open at a workbench to yield valuable minerals. So all we have to do is put these down in the workbench. They will require a hammer to break open. And if we break them open, we can get things like diamond, as you can see, redstone, and we want to keep breaking these open. You'll get various things, but eventually we will be able to get a pristine diamond. Now you can get pristine diamonds, pristine lapis, and pristine emeralds, and these can be used in place of their normal counterparts to give slightly better bonuses. So a pristine diamond could give slightly better bonuses than a regular diamond when used in upgrades. And if we keep breaking these open, you'll see there's a ton of stuff you can get. The pristine ones aren't crazy common, but we also now have a pristine lapis. And ironically enough, the iron handle of our netherite hammer has settled because it is used to break these open. But now if we were to take a pristine diamond, the only other thing you can do with these other than using them for upgrades to tools is put them in here, and then you can shatter them. And you have the possibility of getting multiple of their normal counterparts. So we're going to get diamonds from those. If we shatter the pristine lapis, we'll get diamond from that. And now apparently we upgraded the honing of our netherite hammer too because it's used. So a couple examples of those actually in action while we're messing around with this. But that is going to be the last thing to cover for Tetra. I know it's a ton of stuff, but I tried to make sure that we could cover it in a very concise manner. Like I have said multiple times during this video, there's so many other things you can do with the tools. Go have fun. Go mess around. If you want, tell me the combinations you made in the comments of all the cool tools, which ones you like best. These definitely look awesome, and it adds a nice flair to the basic vanilla tools, which can get kind of boring. But hopefully you guys will be able to make Tetra a very useful addition to mod packs, or if you're playing with it standalone just because you want a little extra flair in your tools, well, then hopefully it's extra useful then too. But hopefully you guys found the video useful and enjoyable, and I will talk to you later.